Jesus Christ is not a first name and surname, it is the Greek word for Jesus, the Messiah. At that time, people in Judea simply did not use surnames, except for those who were influenced by Roman culture. In those days, Jews usually referred to each other by their patronymic or by the town in which they were born. So our hero today was known as Jesus the son of Joseph, in Hebrew, Yeshua ben Joseph, or Jesus of Nazareth. But more often he was called Jesus the son of Mary, probably because his earthly father had long since died. Jesus began his ministry 3 years before his death, at the age of 30. It is thought that he had previously worked as a carpenter with his father. However, the Greek word atekton, which the Gospels used to describe his trade, has a wider meaning and refers to craftsmen in general. In any case, Jesus was a sturdy fellow, not the thin and haggard one the Gospels like to portray him as to emphasize the suffering he endured. Otherwise he would not have been able to carry the heavy cross through Jerusalem alone, for the Romans did not crucify within the city limits. Jesus, however, shows a good knowledge of the Jewish scriptures on many occasions, much more than could be expected of a man of manual labor. Christian scholars have therefore suggested that he was trained by a wise rabbi before he began to preach. From circumstantial evidence and the ideas he expressed, we can assume that Christ was either close to the Jewish religious trend of the Pharisees or came from the ranks of the Jesuites, such peculiar Jewish ascetics. True, if he once belonged to the community of the Essenes, Jesus clearly came from them. In one of the Gospels he says that they reproached him, "The Son of Man came and ate and drank, and they said, 'Behold, the man who loves to eat and drink wine is a friend of publicans and sinners.'" In other words, from the point of view of these people, he was spending his time inappropriately in unworthy company. It is true that the Jesuites were very particular people. In the same Bible verse about John the Baptist, who did not do this, they said that there was a demon in him. Jesus most probably had short hair and a shaved chin, in keeping with the Roman and Jewish fashion of the time. It is in this form that he appears in the earliest ancient depictions. It is just that he was later painted according to medieval ideas of male beauty. However, long hair and a beard are also possible, as the same Essenes took a vow not to shave or trim their heads. Jesus was a polyglot and spoke at least 3 languages: ancient Hebrew, now forgotten and used only in the sacred books, Aramaic, which had become the main means of communication throughout the East. He also communicated freely with the pagan Hellenes and Romans, suggesting a knowledge of Greek and/or Latin. If nothing else, his home region of Galilee was an ethnically heterogeneous place, despite being part of the Kingdom of Judea. Nowhere in the scriptures does it say that Jesus Christ was married. This was very, very surprising in those days when life expectancy was much shorter. However, it is known that he did not abstain from associating with women, which was typical of Jewish ascetics. His own younger brothers, his cousin John the Baptist, and many of his close disciples were married, and the Apostle Peter even traveled and preached throughout Judea and the world with his wife. Even the early Christian church fathers believed that Jesus never went to the toilet. They thought it was against his divine nature. Christ really had our flesh, but it was possible for him not to do what seems humiliating to us, wrote Epiphanius, Bishop of Cyprus. The leaders of the Jewish church had no way of formally accusing him of anything, since preaching was not considered a crime. Although, of course, they clearly did not approve of the new popular teaching that challenged their own authority. So Jesus Christ was sent to the cross because he called himself King of the Jews, that is, he allegedly claimed the throne. Jews see Jesus as a dubious man who confused many people at the end of the Second Temple period. At the time, Jewish society was in crisis because of the Roman conquest. And he declared himself the Messiah and gained the support of the hottest heads. The result was a schism in Judaism, and then began a series of events in which the ancient capital was destroyed and the children of Zion lost their homeland. It is true that Yeshua was not at all to blame for the last two incidents. He was neither the first nor the last to preach apocalyptic sermons in Judea, although he was the most successful thanks to his disciples. Moreover, the schism was later overcome by the formation of Rabbinic Judaism. The revolt against the Romans would have happened anyway, and Christian involvement was not the straw that broke the camel's back. So Jews regard his life and deeds as just one episode in their history, and by no means the most important. Get it right, the Nazarene was the founder of a new faith, which was named in his honor. It subsequently helped to unite a wide variety of peoples and raise them to a new moral level. And in general, despite many extremes, it contributed greatly to the progress of society. But this is all foreign history, not Jewish history. Let's start with the basics, the first books of the Old Testament, which in Judaism are called the Torah or the Pentateuch of Moses, are a history of the Jewish people as well as a collection of religious, moral, and legal norms. If you obey them, you'll be a good person, but you won't get a special thank you from GD. That's why new books appeared in the future. Broadly speaking, they also contain the history of the Jewish state that was established in Canaan after the conquest. And then, the story of the fall of that state and the problems it brought to the people. But man is an animal that is always interested in what comes next. That's why the idea arose among the Israelis that GD would soon send the Messiah to the earth, who would come and silently correct everything. And then, in the land of the Jews, there appeared a whole cohort of Gregory of Graves who declared themselves to be Jews. One of the most famous was a certain Judas of Galilee, who founded the Zealot movement, the fourth branch of Judaism, though in reality they were ordinary rebels fighting against the Romans. In 6 AD he rallied the people against the Roman procurator's census. The census was taken, but Judah was lost. Another rebel leader called Theudas declared himself the Messiah in 44 or 46 AD. He led his followers to the Jordan River and promised to part its waters like Joshua. But the would-be rebels were attacked by Roman cavalry and all were killed. Jesus Christ was peaceful, but that didn't save him. But he is not the Messiah from the point of view of Judaism, because he does not fulfill the clear and consistent criteria mentioned in the Old Testament. Those who want more details can follow the link, but I will mention the most important one: the Mashiach had to survive. That's why modern Jews look at Christ from their own point of view. Well, there was a preacher with strange ideas 2,000 years ago. But there were many of them. How can you remember them all? Yes, of course, many Israelites went that way at that time, which led to the emergence of the Judeo-Christian movement of Jews who believed in Christ. But then, when the Apostle Paul declared that new Gentile converts did not have to be circumcised, abstain from pork and keep the Sabbath, these people either assimilated with the more numerous Romans or returned to Orthodox Judaism. And from the Jewish point of view, the problem both arose and resolved itself, and more than 1,500 years have passed since then. So Jesus has no special significance in Jewish history, unlike the history of the Christian nations. There was a man, now he is gone, either good or nothing about the departed.